Jacob Thomason, a legendary software architect in Silicon Valley, stared at his laptop screen. Lines of code scrolled rapidly before his eyes, but his mind was 1,000 miles away, in the vast open plains of Texas. At 50 years old, Jacob felt a profound weariness. For 20 years, he had been part of the fast-paced race of the tech world, leading countless successful projects and elevating billion-dollar companies to new heights. His bank account was overflowing, but his soul felt dry, exhausted. Every night, he dreamt of green grass, chirping birds, and an endless sky. His wife, Sarah, herself a successful entrepreneur, understood Jacob's state of mind. One morning, over coffee, Sarah said, "Jacob, are we going to live this life forever? Or are we going to make our dream farmhouse a reality?" A new spark ignited in Jacob's eyes at Sarah's words. They both decided to leave the glitz and glamour of Silicon Valley for the peaceful environment of Texas. Their dream was a place where there would be no HOA, Homeowners Association. In Silicon Valley, the HOA rules had made their lives miserable. The length of the lawn grass, the color of the house, even Christmas lights couldn't be put up without HOA approval. They were desperate to escape this web of regulations. After much searching, they found a 60-acre plot in a remote area of Texas. The land was right next to a luxurious HOA called Arrowwood Creek Estates. Jacob had made sure his land was outside the HOA's jurisdiction. This vast property was even more beautiful than he had imagined. It had a small hill, a natural spring, and some ancient oak trees. Jacob knew this was his new life. Jacob planned to build a modern yet rustic farmhouse on his land. He would create a large garden with his own hands, raise some chickens and goats, and spend time in nature with his beloved golden retriever, Buddy. His first task was to put up a sturdy fence around his property and install a gate on the shortcut road to maintain the privacy of his personal land. There was a dirt road running through one corner of this land. It had been used for many years as a shortcut by locals, especially the residents of Arrowwood Creek. It saved them about 5 minutes from the main road. When Jacob bought the land, he didn't know the history of this shortcut. To him, it was his private property. Weeks later, when the gate installation began, Beverly Jenkins made her appearance. Beverly was the HOA president of Arrowwood Creek Estates. She was a former school principal who, after retirement, became the HOA president and controlled every rule in the area with an iron fist. To her, HOA rules were as sacred as the Bible. Everyone in the area knew Beverly by the name Karen because she was extremely authoritarian and always pressured others to get her way. Beverly stepped out of her shiny black SUV and approached Jacob, a clipboard in her hand, her face showing annoyance and her eyes full of authority. "Excuse me, what are you doing here?" Beverly questioned in her sharp voice, as if Jacob was committing a crime. Jacob calmly replied, "I'm fencing my land, Mrs. Jenkins, and installing a gate on this road." Beverly rolled her eyes and said, "Your land? This road has been used by our HOA residents for many years. It's a public shortcut. You can't close it." Jacob smiled and said, "Mrs. Jenkins, I own this land. I have all the paperwork, and nowhere in my documents does it say this is a public road. This is my private property." Beverly turned red with anger. "Do you know who I am? I am the president of Arrowwood Creek Estates. You cannot stop our convenience. This is our right." Her voice was getting louder. Jacob shook his head and said, "You can do whatever you want within your HOA, but this is my land, and I will do whatever I want on my land. This gate will be installed." Beverly threatened, "I'll deal with you. You don't know who you're messing with." She quickly got into her car and drove away, tires kicking up dust. Jacob knew this was just the beginning. The very next day, a new chapter began in Jacob's life. Beverly Jenkins called an emergency HOA meeting. In the meeting, she piled up accusations against Jacob. She claimed that Jacob was disturbing their community peace, had closed their traditional shortcut, and that this would decrease the property value of the area. She hired a renowned lawyer, Mr. Thomas Brown, from the HOA's funds to file a lawsuit against Jacob. The rules of Arrowwood Creek HOA were extremely strict. For example, house colors had to be one of the 10 HOA-approved colors. Lawn grass couldn't be longer than 4 inches. Even Christmas decorations couldn't be put up without HOA approval. Beverly used these rules to maintain her authority over the residents. Although many residents were annoyed with her, no one dared to speak up out of fear. Jacob was also prepared. He hired his own lawyer, Mr. Harris. Mr. Harris was an experienced real estate lawyer, adept at property disputes of this kind. He assured Jacob that his case was very strong. HOA's lawyer, Mr. Brown, claimed that since the road had been used for many years, it would be considered a public road under prescriptive easement. That is, due to long-term use, it had become a public right. He presented some old photos and testimonies from area residents as evidence. But Jacob's lawyer, Mr. Harris, proved that the road was never open to the public. It was a private path used by previous landowners for their own needs, and some neighbors used it with their permission. There was no public record of it, and no government maintenance. Mr. Harris showed the court that fencing Jacob's land and installing a gate fell within his private property rights. He further proved that the HOA had no right to interfere with Jacob's private property, as Jacob's land was outside the HOA's jurisdiction. In court, Beverly Jenkins, with her characteristic arrogance, attacked Jacob. "This man doesn't understand our community values. He's an outsider. He's ruining our way of life." Jacob calmly said, "I am just protecting my property rights. What right does anyone have to say if I want to put a gate on my land? Mrs. Jenkins, your HOA rules are for your area, not for my private property." After hearing all the evidence and arguments, the judge ruled in Jacob's favor. He stated that Jacob's private property rights would be protected and the HOA's claims were baseless. Beverly Jenkins was stunned by the verdict. Her face turned pale. It was a huge blow to her authority. But Beverly was not one to give up easily. She appealed the decision. At the same time, she incited other HOA members against Jacob. Protests began in front of Jacob's house. Threatening letters started arriving in his mailbox. There was an attempt to poison his dog. Jacob knew this was Beverly's doing. Jacob became even more resolute. He installed state-of-the-art security cameras on his property and began collecting evidence of every threat and harassment. He reported the matter to the local police. Although the police initially didn't take it seriously, they began an investigation after seeing the evidence Jacob provided. Jacob's neighbors, Mr. and Mrs. Roberts, who were residents of Arrowwood Creek, secretly supported Jacob. They were fed up with Beverly's tyranny, but were afraid to speak up. They gave Jacob some crucial information that could be used against Beverly. For example, Beverly had used HOA funds to repair her personal car and had paid for her home's lawn maintenance from HOA funds. Jacob gave this information to his lawyer, Mr. Harris. Mr. Harris prepared to file a counterclaim against Beverly with this new evidence. One night, Beverly Jenkins tried to break Jacob's gate with her SUV. She thought no one was watching her, but the entire incident was recorded on Jacob's security cameras. The police caught her red-handed. Beverly was arrested and charged with vandalism, harassment, and embezzlement of HOA funds. This incident caused a stir in Arrowwood Creek estates. HOA members were outraged by Beverly's erratic behavior. They realized that Beverly had wasted their HOA funds and tarnished their community's reputation. They removed Beverly from the HOA president position and decided to take legal action against her. In court, Beverly was fined and ordered to pay compensation for breaking Jacob's gate. Her arrogance was shattered. Her reputation was ruined. After Beverly's downfall, a new peace returned to Arrowwood Creek estates. Mr. Roberts, a calm and rational man, was elected as the new HOA president. He simplified the HOA rules and began to prioritize the residents' opinions. Jacob Thomason built his dream farmhouse on his land. He created a beautiful garden where he grew various fruits and vegetables. His dog, Buddy, played with him all day. He put up a small signboard next to his gate, which read, "Private property, no shortcuts, just peace." Jacob proved that to protect one's rights and live peacefully, one sometimes has to be firm. His story added a new chapter to the history of Arrowwood Creek estates. It was a satisfying tale of an ordinary man defending his rights and teaching an arrogant neighbor a lesson. Jacob didn't just build a house on his 60 acres. He created a new life for himself, where peace and freedom were his greatest assets. Beverly Jenkins had to drive around Jacob's property using the main road for the rest of her life, which reminded her of her defeat every time. Jacob had found the peace he had lost in Silicon Valley. His farmhouse had become his personal paradise, where there were no HOA rules, only his own rules and oneness with nature. Jacob walked his vast land with Buddy every morning, feeling the true freedom of life. His story remained a legend in that peaceful Texas community.